Silence has a weight of its own, almost palpable. It's not just the absence of sound, but a space that seems to expand and swallow everything. When we think of the last human being walking through a city in ruins, what's truly frightening isn't the cracked buildings or the dust-covered streets. What's frightening is realizing that behind each crumbled wall, there were lives, stories, memories. Now, only forgotten marks remain. A crooked picture on the wall of an empty school, an abandoned toy. On the floor of a classroom, a photograph that has lost its colors, but still holds the smiling faces of people who are no longer here. Silence is cruel, because it allows no dialogue, offers no answers, only confronts the survivor with absolute solitude. Imagine entering any home and feeling the impact of everything left behind. The table still set, broken plates on the floor, a cup that will never be emptied. These small details have devastating power because they are testaments to lives cut short. Each object becomes a memory frozen in time, a record of what existed before the collapse. And in this scenario, the last human bears not only the weight of their own existence, but also the burden of all the stories that can no longer be told. This is the true catastrophe, not the physical destruction, but the disappearance of that which connected us. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic because silence and solitude aren't just external elements. They become a state of mind. Imagine the journey of someone who no longer finds voices to speak to, glances to exchange, or even small gestures to share. At first, there may be a certain relief, as if the weight of crowds has dissolved. But soon this relief turns to despair. The human mind was shaped to live in community, and when this hidden truth is shattered, internal transformation is inevitable. Loneliness begins to corrode thoughts, bringing doubts, illusions, even invented voices to fill the void. The psychological impact is so brutal that every corner becomes a challenge. Turning onto a deserted street, the survivor might swear they heard footsteps, but it was only the echo of their own movements. Opening a door, you might expect to find someone, but on the other side, there's only dust and silence. And little by little, the mind shatters, because it wasn't made to bear this burden alone. This is where we understand why loneliness is more terrifying than any visible catastrophe. It doesn't destroy with fire or bombs, but devours from the inside out, silently. This solitude also brings a layer of unexpected revelations. With no one to share the burden of existence, questions arise that have never been asked before. What was the true meaning of all those disputes, of the decisions that led to the collapse? What really mattered, when now all that remains are memories scattered in ruins? In this scenario, the mindset of the last human can no longer rely on collective hope. He must navigate an individual journey, a solitary path that exposes the frailties of our species. And it's not just the psychological aspect that suffers. The body also feels the effects. The lack of interaction alters rhythms, changes perceptions, and creates hallucinations. Even absolute silence becomes deafening because the human brain is programmed to seek constant stimuli. When these disappear, the mind creates its own sounds, shadows, and images. The survivor begins to wonder, what is still real? What is merely the fruit of despair? And this mental confusion becomes a labyrinth with no exit, where each thought echoes like a scream trapped in the void. Perhaps the most painful thing is understanding that there are no witnesses. Every step, every breath, every tear shed will be swallowed up by nothingness. Unlike a catastrophe where survivors can still lean on each other, here there is no one to hold your hand, no one to hear your words. It's a cruel scene, because it shows us that true destruction lies not only in the physical collapse of the world, but in the isolation that transforms a human being into a shadow of themselves. It's at this point that an inevitable reflection arises. What defines us as humanity? Is it technology, big cities, or is it the ability to share experiences, emotions, and stories? When all this fades away, when there's no more exchange, perhaps we realize that our essence has always been connected to others. And in this void, This revelation is like an open wound. There's no point in carrying objects, there's no point in collecting souvenirs, because without someone to share them with, everything loses its meaning. This solitary journey is, at once, a plunge into darkness and an opportunity to see with brutal clarity what truly matters. Solitude forces the mind to confront truths that were previously masked by the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and yet, it is a painful confrontation. The last human has no choice. They must face silence as companionship and absence as routine. Each day is a struggle to maintain sanity, to avoid losing oneself in one's own illusions, to try to find meaning in a reality that no longer offers answers. And perhaps that's what makes this image so disturbing, not the visible chaos, but the invisible void. Because a world in absolute silence isn't just the end of civilization, it's also the end of connection, the collapse of what made us human. If you've come this far and felt this weight in some way, comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject. Nature has a patience that humanity has never understood. As we rushed to build cities that never slept, as we filled the air with smoke and the ground with concrete, it simply watched, waiting for the moment when our own choices would lead us to collapse. And when silence descends upon the planet, when clocks stop and voices disappear, nature slowly begins to reclaim what has always been its own. Roots break through the asphalt. Trees grow inside abandoned living rooms. Flowers sprout from concrete cracks as if they were scars that time insists on covering. It is an inevitable transformation, almost as if the world breathes a sigh of relief after centuries of suffocation. If we stop and think about it, there's something deeply symbolic about this process. As much as humanity believed it controlled everything, we've always been just temporary visitors on a much larger journey. When cities crumble and machines fall silent, the planet doesn't die with us. It moves on, adapts, and regenerates. This is the hidden truth we often ignore. We are not indispensable to Earth. We are just a short chapter in a vast book that will continue to be written, with or without our presence. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because it's not just about nature reclaiming physical space. It's also about the invisible impact of our disappearance. What's really left of us when everything we created is undone? Is our legacy made of skyscrapers and bridges that time will erode? Or is it found in the ideas, the memories, the traces we leave on others? This question is uncomfortable because it forces us to think about our everyday decisions, those that seem small, but that build the thread of our collective history. The last human, walking amid ivy-covered ruins, may feel that the world no longer bears their mark. But perhaps our greatest legacy lies not in the objects we abandon, but in the internal transformations we foster in one another. After all, an invention, a book, a song, or even a simple gesture of compassion are seeds that continue to germinate, even when we are no longer here to see them. It's as if our legacy is less about physical constructions and more about the capacity to create meaning. This reflection leads us to consider something we rarely question. How will we be remembered? Will the silence of the future completely erase our passage, or will the Earth preserve in its layers of dust the traces of who we were? Future excavations, if there is someone or something to carry them out, may uncover our plastic remains, our broken buildings, our irreversible marks on the climate and oceans. The planet will speak of us through these scars, revealing both our genius and our flaws. And this, too, is part of the hidden truth. The human legacy is ambiguous, marked by both creation and destruction. But the question of legacy isn't just material. There's also a philosophical dimension. What did it mean to be human? Were we simply creatures seeking to survive, accumulate, and dominate? Or was there something greater within us, a flame of consciousness capable of changing the course of our very existence? Perhaps what truly defines humanity isn't what we achieve, but what we dream of, even if those dreams remain unfulfilled. When we think of nature reclaiming the planet, it's not just a visual scenario of trees swallowing buildings or rivers carving a path where avenues once stood. It's a reminder that everything we build, however grandiose it may seem, is temporary. And at the same time, it makes us realize that there was beauty in our short journey. This beauty, perhaps, is precisely the ability to reflect on our own finitude, to question what we will leave behind, and to recognize that deep down, we are part of something much greater. Behind the scenes of civilization, there has always been this tension, the search for eternity through monuments, works, and achievements, and the silent certainty that none of it would stand the test of time. This contradiction is what makes reflection on the end so powerful. Because faced with solitude and silence, each question takes on even greater weight. What was truly worth it? What will have an impact when we are no longer here to witness it? It's curious to imagine that when humanity disappears, Earth will continue to produce auroras, storms, forests, and seas without anyone witnessing them. And yet, these phenomena will exist. This shows us that our journey has always been about meaning, not permanence. Perhaps this is the true legacy, not that which lasts forever, but that which even briefly transforms. The question of human legacy isn't just speculation about the distant future. It's also an invitation to look at the present with new eyes. Every choice, every decision, every gesture carries within it the possibility of becoming part of this legacy. And when we think about the end of humanity, we realize that, in some way, we are always writing our collective epitaph. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's something unsettling about imagining that our memory could be completely lost. What if nothing remains but silence? Will it still have been worth it? Or is the mere fact that we existed, that we felt and dreamed, enough to justify our brief passing? This is the revelation that remains open, a reflection that has no easy answer, but which echoes as a constant reminder of who we are and what we leave behind. And if this reflection made sense to you, write in the comments, "I'm on this journey too." If you've made it this far, you've already realized that this kind of reflection isn't just about the end of the world, but also about what each of us carries within this journey. If this content made you think differently, if it resonated with you, take advantage and subscribe to the channel. That way you can continue following these stories that always reveal something beyond the surface. And to let me know you stuck with me until the very end, leave the phrase, "I'm with you until the end," in the comments. I'd love to see who else has walked this journey with me thus far. Oh, and of course, leave a like too, because that shows this connection truly made sense. And since the conversation doesn't need to end now, there's a video here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me there.